back to another episode of Ignite Your Power, the Kathy Mou podcast where we explore healing, wholeness, and the powerful intersection between science and spirituality. So today's episode is going to blow your mind and open your heart to the future of medicine. I'm joined by Dr. Jeff Gross, a renowned neurological surgeon and founder of Recelebrate, a cutting-edge regenerative medicine practice that is transforming how we view cancer, aging, and chronic illness, which is so exciting. I'm so excited to really tap into this, which we will. Dr. Gross is here to introduce us to groundbreaking therapy using activated NK cell-derived exosomes, a natural non-toxic treatment that enhances your body's innate ability to find and destroy cancer cells, senescent zombie cells, and inflammation-causing toxins without harming healthy tissue. We'll also explore the role those exosomes play in longevity, their potential to prevent disease before it even begins, an exciting new possibility for women's health, including how this therapy might support conditions like endometriosis. So this is one of those episodes you'll want to take notes on. So let's dive into the future of healing with Dr. Jeff Gross. So hi, Doctor.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here, and I want to thank you for the opportunity. And hello to everyone out there.
Yeah, of course. Like, I'm just so excited to pick your brain for even just this short period of time. So, you have an incredible background in neurosurgery and regenerative medicine. Can you share what inspired you to explore natural, non-toxic alternatives to conventional cancer treatments?
Well, thanks. Yeah, my patients actually get most of the credit. I know it was in the back of my mind always that, yeah, as a surgeon, that we made surgery the last option, right? And tried to avoid it. We learned how to do it, and the goal is it was a tool we should only apply if necessary. But I saw so many of my colleagues just rush right to surgery, and I thought, well, they're sort of this hammer looking for a nail to pound in. So I was always looking for biologic treatments, logical treatments, and of course the word logic is embedded in the word biologic.
Yeah.
So it always made sense to me that it was. And with a background in sort of that in undergraduate school, I wanted to bring it all back together. My patients were seeking other options. They didn't want surgery unless they had to have it. So we were trying to find other alternatives, and that's kind of how it came together.
That's awesome. That is so true, though, because surgery is such a huge deal, actually. It's very
Yeah.
invasive, it's harsh on the body. Just even having a C-section, I know it's kind of tangent, but the healthcare system makes it seem like, oh, having a C-section is nothing. But then when I'm healing through it, I was like, whoa, this is actually pretty big.
Yeah,
It kind of
it's
made
real
me think.
surgery for sure.
So I love how you went on searching for this alternative way to do things less invasive. This is so
Thank you.
awesome. So let's talk about natural killer cells or NK cells. What exactly are they and how do they act as the body's first responders when it comes to detecting cancer or other harmful threats?
Yeah, so when you study the immune system of the body, we're looking at a population of cells that help us fight infection and other things. So, and they can get out of whack. They can cause too much immunity, and that's called an autoimmune, where you attack yourself, right? And there's so many diseases now, and they can be triggered by weird things, viruses, COVID, things like that. So one very small percentage of the white blood cells of the immune system have a special job, and they're called natural killer cells, NK, if we can use that here today, NK cells. And these NK cells have a job. They go around throughout the body, and they're like a security system. Their job is to identify and selectively remove abnormal cells. I mean, really abnormal cells, like uh, senescent zombie cells. These are very aged cells that stop dividing, collect a bunch of junk, are leaky with toxins, and take up resources without giving back to the community. So they are called senescent or zombie cells. You imagine, a zombie apocalypse. And if you have more of the more of those you have, the more aged your cell population is, and the more biologically aged you are, and everything bad that goes with that. It also removes abnormal cells like that are infected by parasites and other things, but also cancer cells. Cancer cells can be very abnormal. And natural killer cells are very good at removing these types of cells from the body. Because as we are even young and growing and developing and healthy, we make accidental cancer cells and we have billions of cells that are, dividing and replacing. And, they're just numerically, we're going to have a couple whoopsies. Well, the natural killer cell job is to remove those whoopsies, and they do it selectively. And they do it by their ammunition, little bullets called extracellular vesicles or exosomes. And they're small. Now you're saying, but Jeff, cells are small.
Yeah.
And you'd be right, cells are small. But these are even smaller particles that are made by the natural killer cells that are taken up by these abnormal cells, and they're like a Trojan horse. And once they're taken up by those cells, the enzymes that are delivered actually cause that cell to rupture, and its contents are recycled. So it's a way to kill a cell, but it doesn't harm our normal cells. So it's really selective, really cool. And only recently were we able to get our hands on these exosomes by themselves from the natural killer cells.
Wow.
And so we have this new off the shelf sort of approach to aging and cancer and other things. So I probably went way too far outside the bounds of your question, but that's sort of the 101 on natural killer cell exosomes.
No, I love that. I love going into detail because the more we understand the basics of how things work, the more we can really understand how it works, right? So you can't have the whole picture without the basics. So thank you for going into depth with that. I know as we age, our immune system weakens, including these NK cells. What causes this decline, and how does it impact our body's natural ability to fight off disease?
Great question. So our natural killer cells, like all of our cells, including our stem cells
Mhm.
that we maintain, are all affected by the inflammatory damage of our environment. That could be from things in our food source that we shouldn't have, preservatives. It could be from things like pesticides. It can be from maybe not having the right nutrition, sort of gaps in our nutrition, too many carbs or gluten or things like that. It can also be from other forms of environmental stress, like chemicals and pollutants in the air or in the water, electromagnetic fields, or even just psychological stress can enhance internally our inflammatory pathways. So all of those things degrade or degenerate our cell. So aging is this degenerative process, and degeneration is an aging process. So that also affects our natural killer cell function. So we become less good at removing the abnormal cells. So it was found, if you look at a population of cancer patients, that they have a reduced number and a reduced function of their natural killer cells. That doesn't mean that's what caused it necessarily, the cancer, but it certainly took away this, the surveillance system, the removal system, the garbage man that would normally remove those. And when that becomes less efficient, then the cancer cell can become a tumor and set up shop.
So how do we actually regenerate NK cells? Is it possible or is it not?
Yeah, we can stimulate our NK cell activities with the right nutrients, with things like glutathione, with a good amount of healthy fruits and vegetables that deliver what are called phytonutrients to our cells. And by the way, uh, plants make exosomes that are super healthy for us. So we eat those, but you'd have to eat, bushels and bushels and bushels of fruits to get that sort of thing. So they're now, we have a nutraceutical and supplements we can take for that. But the we can also stimulate natural killer cells by hormesis. Hormesis means a slight stress on the body to build resilience, like high intensity exercise, like hot sauna sessions, like fasting, like cold plunge, like exercising in low oxygen environments like high altitude. Things like that, task the body to work harder just enough to build a more resilient population of cells and foster things like stem cell release and increase blood counts, including natural killer cells. So you can improve your own natural killer cell function by those activities.
That's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Do you have to do it for a long period of time or how do you know that you are actually increasing your NK cells or increasing these cells that are good for you that you need in your body?
Well, there are blood tests where you can look at NK cells and things like that. They're not, inexpensive. And these days you'd have to probably pay for those with your own money. But if you feel better and things like that, that's a good measure. If you have more energy, you sleep better, that's a good measure. And if you look at a lot of alternative approaches to cancer, you'll find that exercise, hot sauna, cold plunge, all these things have been shown to be partially effective against cancer. So it's probably through their stimulation of the NK cell activity in the body that has at least part of that reasoning.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I love that. That's so true. And I feel like a lot more people have cancer nowadays than we did before. Do you think
Right.
is, like you said, due to our environment and our nutrition and how we eat and our lifestyle? Do you think that plays a big role in how
It,
cancer
it
has?
plays a big role, Kathy, for sure. We are poisoning ourselves, and others are poisoning us, whether we know it or not. From Teflon pans to microplastics to all kinds of things in the environment, like you noticed, to a non-nutritive food source. We have watered down food and things like that. And then on top of that, our screening techniques have become aggressive, right? You look at mammography, and the recent studies are showing that we're overdoing it, and we're probably causing harm with the radiation. So, you know, we're finding it faster, we're finding it sooner, which we're supposed to, because we can do more about a cancer if you get it early when it's small. But at the same token, we may be overdiagnosing things like prostate cancer and breast cancer.
Oh, wow. And is there certain cancers that are more higher chances of people getting nowadays? You kind of just said breast cancer. But I was thinking because my dad had pancreatic cancer, and back when he had it 10 years ago, when we saw the doctors, they were like, "Oh, pancreatic cancer is one of like the cancers that are not as common." But I feel
Right.
like nowadays it has increased where a
It
lot more
has.
people are having this type of cancer. But do you know, I know we're not really talking about cancer, but I just really wanted to understand, like, why does certain types of cancer form in certain people?
Yeah. No, your question's actually appropriate. People want to know this, so you're not asking anything that. But cancer is more common, and pancreatic cancer numbers have soared. Part of that, and someone's going to probably, hit me on the head and bury me in the desert now. But part of that appears to be this increase in tumor rates after COVID pandemic slash vaccine. Now, I haven't correlated that as a causation quite as of yet, but I mean, it's certainly suspicious, right? We have these incredibly inflammatory spike proteins, these SV40 proteins, whether it's from the virus or the vaccine, both, and those are causing all kinds of havoc with our inflammatory system. And when the inflammatory system is out of whack, you're more likely to get cancer. And prostate seems to be more susceptible. Glands in general, so breast, prostate, things that tend to have a lot of cell growth and turnover tend to have a higher cancer rate typically. So this is just enhancing it
Hmm.
in a bad way, but bad enhancement.
Bad enhancement. I know
Yeah,
we don't want this bad enhancement. It's funny
right.
how we are living longer, right? The expectancy of our health and the human population is actually extending to longer living lifespan, but I feel like most of us is getting a lot more sicker than how our back in the generations used
Yeah.
to be. So why?
That's an interesting observation. And if you look at life expectancies in the U.S. by the 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 epidemiologic measures, they hadn't really been going up very fast. Healthier places in Europe and elsewhere have had better increases in lifespan than ours. And of course, lifespan is not the only goal. We want to have a healthy lifespan. You don't want to live an extra 20 years and be in a nursing home for 19 of them, right? So we want that health span filling the lifespan. So we are not finding that in America, and of course, all life expectancies took a dip in the post-COVID region.
Mhm.
We're hoping that those recover. But we're now still seeing secondary problems left over from COVID vaccine and COVID infections, and we're learning more about that every day. So this wasn't a ubiquitous, you know, no to everything. It's just we're learning more about it, and we should have been more, quizzical going into it, going into the vaccine side of it at least. However, I think if you look across the board at life expectancy, it's a tough measure because what they've done is the tables, the life expectancy tables, at least in the US, take all people. So you could be a smoker eating, Fritos and Doritos all day. Sorry, Frito-Lay, I didn't mean anything bad to you, but you probably shouldn't eat those all day. And then you have another group of people who are doing their darndest to eat healthy and exercise and breathe clean air and do all that. So I would say this, Kathy, after going around and around with lots of words. I think if you took the healthiest segment, we are pushing the lifespan. You're seeing more people live past 100 and 110 than we've ever seen. But the average is no better.
Mm, gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, that's what I feel. The average is just not doing really well. And that makes a lot of sense. And you do have the extreme opposite. I'm the extreme opposite of where I'm trying to be healthy. But yet, even though I do all the right things of eating nutrient dense foods and trying to exercise, but of course, our lifestyle is just so fast paced. So a lot of us have
Yep.
stress. So that causes I'm sure it's killing my NK cells as we're talking right now.
No, don't do it. No, we need those. Well, one thing you and others can employ easily is really take advantage of your repair cycle, which is called sleep. Really good sleep hygiene, getting the best out of your sleep, setting yourself up for repair, cellular repair during the night. And that could be based on how long you sleep, how well you sleep, how deep you sleep, how you help your cells. Do they have what they need for DNA repair and other repair at night? Do you take magnesium? Are you getting the right melatonin replacement? Are you winding down your brain and slowing the neuroinflammation at night, getting the neurotransmitters into that state? Are you in a cold room, but you're warm under the blankets? You have a comfortable bed, no one next to you snoring, keeping you up, that kind of thing. I mean, all of those things play a role in how you sleep. And sleep is where we repair, just like plants have a light cycle and a dark cycle. The biochemistry changes during those cycles, so it does for us. And we need to respect that.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't even think about how important it is or sleep is. I mean, I know sleep is important, but how you even relax before you go into sleeping or sleep mode and all the other factors. Man, we really should look into that. There should be just a course on how your sleep cycle is. And I know people actually use some type of
Yeah.
watch something to track their sleep. That's so interesting how you can do
Yeah,
that.
I mean, listen, we could talk for half an hour on that easily, but pay attention to your sleep. There's great resources online. Other people better expert at me that I've learned from, that you can learn from. And who knows, maybe your next guest will be a sleep expert.
That would be pretty cool. But that's so good to know to even start tapping into thinking about that. Because I didn't even think about it. I know rest is important. I know sleeping is important. But how much of that sleep is actually really repairing your body and putting you
Right.
into that repair mode instead
Yeah.
of whatever it is.
Yeah,
Awesome.
more important than we ever realized, probably. Well, we probably realized it hundreds of years ago, but we've lost sight of those things, trying to get, squeeze a little more activity, a little more efficiency out of a person, and it's to our detriment because we're becoming less efficient if you overdo it.
True. And that's why a lot of us is burnt out. Our society is just so overwhelmed, full of anxiety, just exhausted.
Right?
Yeah, because we're not
Yeah.
doing the basics right. We're just so
Yeah.
overwhelmed and consumed by all this stuff.
Well said. It's like rebooting your computer every now and then. You got to clear the cache and
Yeah.
let it reset. And our brain needs that every day. So if we don't get it adequately, we have more and more neuro stress, neuroinflammation. Our cortisol goes up, and then what are we? We're anxious. And then the anxious makes the stress worse, and it's a compounding cycle in the wrong direction.
Yes, and this is so important to practice mindfulness and all these things. So, what are some of your practices? I would love to hear what are your daily practices that you do.
Okay, well, so for sleep, we'll start there. And I'm not 100%. No one's perfect, right? So we really try to stop eating before dark, right? So, have dinner, and that's it. So that nighttime snack is hurting us because your body is inflamed when it's eating and processing food, and you want to go to bed hungry. You want to go to bed sort of in a fasting state.
Mm.
You'll also if you eat too close to bedtime, you throw off your sleep cycle, you throw off your hormone balance, you throw off your ability to burn calories because you're more spending more time in storage than you are in burning mode. And there should be a balance between the two, otherwise you'll gain weight. And certainly in this country, we have a problem there. So no box of Oreos at bedtime. In fact, no Oreo at bedtime. It should be nothing. Have a glass of water. If you're absolutely dying, have something that's protein. A piece of cheese, cottage cheese, something like that. Very simple. Um, and then a cold room. Try to turn off your screens or wear some blue blocker glasses, that kind of thing. So because there's a lot of abnormal stimulation, light stimulation of our retina, the back of the eyes, and our brain thinks it's morning. So it secretes cortisol at a higher level, meaning you're stressed and you can't sleep. And then the right supplementation. So I take a melatonin, I like a dissolvable at night. I really get deeper sleep out of that. I do have an app on my phone that listens to me sleep and gives me feedback on my sleep, how much deep sleep, REM sleep, that kind of thing. Now, the purist will say, well, now you've got electromagnetic fields next to you. That's inflammatory. So I try to keep my phone a little bit away from me so it doesn't always pick up all the sounds. We have a grounding pad on our mattress, to help take away some of those, bad ions. But that's helped. We just bought a new bed, I will mention, and I'm not going to plug any brands, but it has this big speaker underneath the frame, and at bedtime it'll give me a 40 hertz lymphatic massage for 15 minutes. It's a pounding sound like a vibration plate. So you gotta do your lymphocyzing here. You gotta get that gunk out of your lymph system. So I like that. It kind of soothes me to sleep. And I've done light meditation. I'm really not sort of in that
Yeah.
genre a lot, but there's that app Headspace that has some, just calming sort of guy talking to you or taking you through a little story of how to turn your brain off, and that's pretty good. So that's my sleep routine, but I'm a big biohacker. I intermittent feed, so I don't really eat until lunchtime. I really stack protein because I got to maintain muscle mass and maybe even put some on. So I'm really forcing protein. You're supposed to get about 1 gram per lean body mass in pounds per day. So, if my lean body mass is, let's say, 150 pounds, I need to really work hard to get 150 grams of protein. So I'm doing low calorie protein shakes during the day and things. Exercise is a big component, and you don't have to exercise for hours. I like to do, just an efficient workout. It could be 15, 20 minutes of intermittent cardio where you go fast, you go slow, intervals. And then, I much rather work like on a treadmill at a high incline than and go slow than go fast on a flat. You're going to get more out of that muscle. The muscles have to be really stimulated to release their little myokine peptides that are so
Yeah.
healing. And then a little bit of resistance training. So it doesn't have to be a lot. I don't believe in 3 sets of 10 anymore. Like when we grew up, it was just
Yeah,
a
me too, thank you.
tradition. One set to failure, just go all out and you're done. So we can do a workout in 40 minutes, 20 minutes cardio, 20 minutes exercise of lifting, mix it up with some other things so you don't get bored, Pilates and whatever. And then, diet, and that can vary, right? Because we're on the move. We got to eat quick. You and I had this broadcast set up. I had 10 minutes, so I ate something really quick, and I'm like, I shouldn't have eaten so quickly. But I didn't want you to hear my stomach growling during the broadcast. So you got to have your protein and your fats, good fats, avoid the seed oils,
Yeah.
and this is just low level stuff. I do track my HRV, although I don't wear wearable tech throughout the day. A lot of people do, as you mentioned. And I like the data. The data is great. Gives you something to track.
Yeah.
I believe in hormone optimization, especially to suppress inflammation. We're seeing a need for that in younger and younger people these days,
Mhm.
for various reasons, something in the water. But, if you maintain a normal hormone profile, with guidance, you will live longer and healthier, and you will slow the inflammaging process, the inflaming aging process. So the longer a woman will have cycles, the longer she will live. The later her last pregnancy, the longer she will live. We know this. And the more exercise you get, the longer you will live. The more muscle mass and bone density you have, the longer you will live. So these are easy things to do to sort of maintain. And then I like some hormesis. I like to get in the hot sauna. I like to do an occasional 3-day fast, things like that.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so
Yeah.
powerful to hear it from like a professional or someone who actually has a busy life doing amazing things, but still being able to still do the basics and keep yourself healthy and doing what is needed for your body. And a lot of us, again, don't do these things at all. We don't even look at how we're sleeping, and you have this whole routine, which is awesome. I love it. I'm really gonna start doing like a nighttime routine now. I just pretty much put my daughter to bed and I'm like, okay, I'm on the phone, and then when I get tired, I just sleep. So I was like,
Yep.
that's the wrong way. I'm sure most of us do this though at night because you're like, oh, this is the time to unwind.
Yeah.
And unwinding is being on your phone.
Yeah, no, it can be. It can very well be. You got to just the screen, the lights. So you may have to get some of
Yeah.
those those glasses that block the blue light. And
Mm.
yeah, I can relax and giggle at Instagram myself. I mean, I get it. So it's okay as long as it's a happy routine and you're not stressed out by all the craziness that's on
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah, I try to look at uplifting things before I go to bed. I'm like, okay, I feel good, and then relax and go to bed.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like I do most of that too. I try to
Good.
do most of that on a daily basis. But isn't that crazy that even you doing those basic things, it's just time consuming though? Because
Yeah.
it takes a lot of your time to do the basics and then to add on your work, and then you have a family, you have to add that on, and then you have
Yep.
to commute, and then you got to do all this, and it's just like a list of things, and that's why I love what you're doing. So let's go back to what you do. Amazing. I always
Thank you.
love hearing what people do on a daily basis because the more we talk about it, the more people will understand like this is really like the basics is really so important. And I feel
Yeah.
like we're always looking for a hack or something like uh I don't know, something really fast and to dissolve or resolve the issue. And it's not like that.
Yeah.
It's gonna take probably a
Well,
lot.
we like the hacks, and the hacks can take no time, like skipping breakfast. I call it intermittent feeding or intermittent fasting. That doesn't take any time. That saves time actually. So, and my exercise doesn't take a lot of time, and it makes me go do it. So, because I know it'll be quick. So you can make it work, and you should. Everyone's different, and find what suits you best, and your lifestyle. Yeah, you've got children and spouses and all kinds of commitments, and we've got work and all that. So you've got to fit it in, and it could be simply as us getting up out of our chairs right now and doing squats, right, every hour. 10 body weight squats, are better than, a walk at night. So they're called exercise snacks. If you
Mm,
haven't heard of it, check
no.
it out. After this broadcast, for those of you listening at home, go to your web browser and Google exercise snacks. And it's
Ooh,
not something you're going to eat, it's something you're going to do, but it only takes a minute and you could not interrupt your work. We can continue this podcast while doing squats.
yeah, I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that. I'm really gonna go look at that because we always often think that it's going to take a lot of our time, but certain things and doing the right things, though, right? Like doing the right things
Hmm.
to actually get the optimal health that you need.
Yeah.
So we often hear about chemotherapy and radiation as the only options. What makes NK cells exosome therapy a potentially safer and more effective alternative?
So, in cancer care, there's still a use in many cases for chemotherapy and radiation or both. I don't mean to be saying it's going away. It would be nice if we didn't have to use it as often because both of them not only cause damage to the cancer, but to our normal cells to an extent. So, in fact, the only way they work is to kill the cancer faster than they kill us. So, wouldn't it be nice if we had a natural treatment with no known side effects that gave us a similar result without causing harm? And that's really where the NK cell exosomes come in. Now, they can be used in addition to or in between chemotherapy, radiation. They can be used theoretically as something that helps prevent cancer. Maybe someone's high risk, they have a BRCA gene or a family history. Maybe that someone's already been treated before and they just want to stay in remission with more success. They want to do something active. NK cell exosomes would be great for that. So that's how I would, look at things. And everyone's different. And we're not here to say, oh no, don't do chemo and radiation. We're here to say we have new options. They can be additive. They can be instead of. Let's at least go over them and educate people.
Yeah, I love that. Why not have more options and not just the same old-fashioned things? It's always great to have more options so you know what's better for your health. And everybody, like you said, is so different. Maybe one person does really well with chemotherapy, maybe someone doesn't. And so they need more alternatives, which
Right.
it's great that you are, allowing or giving people that option. So this is so cool.
Thank you.
There any standout stories or case studies from your practice that show just how powerful these therapies can be in real life outcomes?
We have a ton of experience with what are called stem cell derived exosomes for um, inflammatory issues, autoimmune issues, recovery from stroke, heart attack, brain injury, um, you know, diffuse aches and pains. We use them directly in joints and spine for osteoarthritis or degeneration of the joints, bone on bone. And people who want to avoid surgery, we use them for anti-aging and biohacking and health and wellness, just in an intravenous sense. But we've only had the natural killer cell exosomes in our hands for about 6 months now. We were probably one of the first clinics in the US to get our hands on them. They're so difficult to come by because NK cells are such a small percentage of what you find in the umbilical cord. And then you have to get those separated and out from all the other cells, then divide them in culture and make enough of them, and then have them make the exosomes. Luckily, there were a couple labs working on this and able to produce some, and those labs were in China and in Europe. And I've been in communication with both labs for a few years, and finally, the European lab was able to sell us a very limited number of doses. So that's how we came across these. So my stories on the NK cell exosome side for cancers, we've been using them both intravenous and injecting tumors because there's wonderful medical evidence and research published on this showing you can inject tumors and those will help shrink the tumors. And that's we're starting to see that in our practice. And I'm collecting all the data and we will publish on this.
This is so awesome. I can't wait for the published work. This is so cool. That's so exciting to see that. How
Thank you.
many years have you been actually doing this type of work of researching and then finding that these NK cells really can help with the exosomes, like shrinking the tumors?
Yeah, well, the NK cell exosomes have only been available to us this year. So, but I've been researching it for about 4 years because when I got into the regenerative medicine space 7 years ago, and we were starting to using exosomes then, I didn't have a solution for cancer. And of course, as a physician, you want to help people with cancer because it's so devastating to have that diagnosis and there's so few options and the options are toxic. And you really, gosh, if we had a logical approach to cancer that nature's already made for us, wouldn't that be great? So I've been tugging at this for quite a while. We're just so happy to be able to have those now.
Man, I feel like this is definitely one of your life purposes is to find this because it came to you. How did this actually come to you? Like this idea? You just were inspired one day and you're just like, let me just check this out and like figure it out, or it's just like, oh no, you knew something in your gut. Something there. There has to be something.
I'm a nerd. I'm always reading on regenerative medicine and people come to me with problems. And I had people with cancer that I didn't want to use the regular stem cell derived exosomes because, I we don't know enough about the relationship between cancers and exosomes. I just didn't want to cause any risk. And I started researching that more and looking at what's called immunotherapy. So using the immune system against cancer, and natural killer cells came up. And when I looked at all the different types of immunotherapies, it seemed like the natural killer cells were just the soldiers of cancer removal, and they did it through exosomes. I thought, oh, great. I'm sort of, whether I meant to or not, I'm becoming sort of the exosome expert here, and I want to be able to offer something for people with cancer. So it just was a natural extension of what I was already doing, plus what I was reading and looking at, and my nerdy instinct that just brought that together.
That's so cool. I love like hearing stories of how people find out what they're really actually meant to do. And so this is what you're meant to do.
Ah, I
Interesting.
guess you're right.
It is. And then now you get to be on different podcasts to talk about this. And when you talk about this work, you're so passionate. I can see it. Even though it didn't correlate to you exactly, but you see the impact that you make on your patients and other people. And then finding this, it's just like, so rewarding. And it's kind of like
Thank you.
what I do in a way, but not as extensive or so life changing. And
Well, you never know. It's just different. And I want to thank you for having me on because podcasts are the best way to get the word out of these alternatives. It should be mentioned that we are not allowed to advertise these things on Google, on Facebook. They shut you down immediately, and I'm sure big pharma and what have you doesn't like this, these natural alternatives being out there. So thank you for providing a forum for free speech, so we can share and what we have, and everything we do is based on medical evidence, based on research, it's based on publications. We might be making some extrapolations where we need to, but wouldn't you want to try something like this if you had a diagnosis that was so devastating? You
yeah.
know, before we had to use chemotherapy, or in addition to, you want to stack all your chances, right? This is your shot. So anyway, thank you for being able to provide a forum for this. So that might be your purpose, like you said.
Thank you. I never thought of it that way, but that's amazing. It probably is one of my life purposes to do that. And there's no coincidences. That's what I truly believe. I really believe that we're always brought together or introduced to one another because the universe wants us to do this. So this is pretty cool. And like you said, it is true. When my dad had cancer, I wanted to try everything possible. And when you have a loved one, or even if I had cancer, I would try to do everything possible to stay alive as long as I can, or see if I can reverse it or do anything. And yeah, it's so cool that you're able to give people that option now. And I wish this was available 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Or maybe
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I wish it were too. And because we would be looking at this perhaps in a completely different way now than you did then.
Yeah, but everything's always meant to be. And again, a lot more people are having cancer. So obviously, there needs to be more alternative or different ways to go about
Yeah,
this. There can't
yeah.
be these certain, right, pharma things or old-fashioned things that we do. So, what do you see as the future of medicine? Could these exosome therapies become the standard for not only healing but preventing disease altogether?
I think so. What's coming in the exosome side of things is what we call designer exosomes.
Mhm.
So these are exosomes that you might put certain delivery of peptides and growth factors and mRNAs and things to influence the cell in a more specific way. they already have designed exosomes that have lots of mitochondria, and having more mitochondria and newer mitochondria in our cells are a great way to help, reduce disease and support a more youthful physiology, youthful biology. So those are the things that are coming. They also have, synthetic exosomes. They call them, nanoparticles or nanolipids. They have, all kinds of new subpopulations of stem cells we're working with. There's one in particular that we should have very soon called Muse cells, MUSE, and these are like a Greek sprite that inspires people to write poetry, that kind of muse. So that's the kind of muse they call this cell it's named for. They're smaller, they can perhaps cross into the brain, and they work on different types of tissue more so than a typical what's called mesenchymal stem cell. So these things are on the horizon, in the short horizon. We're talking, months to a few years. And then, with the improvement in AI, we're going to be able to design custom exosomes for someone's physiology. So, you imagine you're 40 years old, you have a blood test, you've got all kinds of symptoms and what have you. We use the exosomes from your body as a diagnostic tool. We see what's in them, and then the AI will tell us what sort of antidote exosome you need to sort of improve your physiology to address these things with the particular mRNAs or microRNAs and the particular peptides and growth factors and heat shock proteins and all this. So that's another way to hack our system into cellular health. And cellular health means cellular longevity, and cellular longevity means person longevity.
Wow, that is so cool. So AI is going to be upgrading and like helping it really shift. So that's perfect into my next question because I have endometriosis. Do you think that this would be able to help people with endometriosis? Because it does really affect millions of women, and we have these
Yeah.
endometrial cells that really causes inflammation in our body and so much.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, at the first blush, you're right. Endometriosis has an inflammatory component. So we use regenerative medicine. We use stem cell-derived exosomes all the time to help suppress bodily inflammation. And if you suppress the inflammation, you help suppress the source of pain, because the inflammation sometimes is the source of pain, not just the presence of endometrial cells, but the actual inflammatory reaction of the local tissue. So if we can squash that, then the disease has much less is much less impactful on a person, and about it hurts the person. We have to learn more about endometriosis and its root cause to really figure out though and help people with the fertility issues that come with that, and the dysregulated bleeding and things like that. That requires probably a little bit more than just the anti-inflammatory aspect.
Yeah, but our only option right now for endometriosis is either take birth control or you get a hysterectomy or you get these laparoscopies. Like it's very extreme. There's no like in between.
Right.
So
Right.
this maybe could be something opening up something for the
Yeah.
future, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and we do this. We use the anti-inflammatory stem cell-derived exosomes frequently for people with inflammatory issues. So we would do some additional blood markers, look for how inflamed someone is, and give it a try. We protect patients by helping them have access to things, and if they want the right to try.
That's awesome. So how does the whole process work? So if they go into your office and then, you get a consult and then would you do a blood test and then you just kind of diagnose and then how does that whole process?
Yeah, most of it's remote these days through the magic of video, televideo, or computer video. So most of our patients don't live here in Las Vegas, where I'm based. They're from somewhere else, but they don't have to come here at the beginning. We start remotely. We order any tests that we may need if they're not already done. We review all the tests they've had done, and we only invite people in here to Las Vegas to the clinic if there's a reason to invite them, right? You don't have to come just to come. But if you are going to be in town and you want to come visit, that's great too. We like to see people in person as well. And we look at blood markers, we look at inflammatory markers, all kinds of different ways to do that. And then sometimes it comes down to whether or not someone wants to try this, like an IV. So that's done here in the clinic. And we do that for healthy people. I do it myself 4 times a year. My wife does it, my mother, my stepfather, others. We have people that fly in for that on a regular basis, every 6 months, every 12 months, just depends.
Oh, that's awesome. Maybe I'll go visit you one day. I mean,
Come
you're
on
not that
down,
far from me, so that would be fun.
right?
Yeah, and then get an IV drip. That would be cool. Thank you so
Can
much
do.
for today. Last but not least, where can the listeners learn more about you or your work?
Thank you. So our practice name is Recelebrate because you're celebrating the renewal of your cells. That's spelled RECELLEBRATE. And you can find us online at recelebrate.com, Instagram, Recelebrate, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the socials. It's the same word. I think we're the only people using that. Our plant-derived exosome nutraceutical can be found at recellnutra.com, RECELLNUTRA. And, we've been very pleased with that. It's called Longevix for longevity and exosomes. So check that out.
Love it. I'll put all of your links also in the show notes below when I put this out. But thank you so much for today and letting us pick your brain for this time. It was so amazing to hear all your routines and all that and bring this passion and new alternative to our world, which is amazing. And I can't wait to see what else you do and see your publication. I'm going to be
Thank you.
looking for that. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. If we can help just one person together, then today was well worth it.
Yes, I totally believe that. And again, everything is always meant to be. So definitely you were here, we were brought together for a reason. So I know we're going to touch thousands of lives and millions in the future.
Perfect.
It'll be here. So
Perfect.
thank you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me on Ignite Your Power with Kathy Mou podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, take a deep breath and know this: you're exactly where you're meant to be. If you're feeling called to go deeper, I'd love to support you. You can work with me one-on-one or book a numerology guidance card reading with me. All are in the show links below. And if this episode supported you in any way, please share with someone who needs it, leave a review, or take a screenshot and tag me on social media. Your support helps this message reach more souls who are ready to step into their power. Until next time, keep choosing yourself, keep trusting your journey, and keep living your bliss soft life. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!